Hello and welcome to Kalamazoo and You. This is a program where we have conversations with City of Kalamazoo staff on important issues, events, and topics in the City of Kalamazoo. And I'm Mike Smith. I'm the Communication Manager for the City of Kalamazoo and your host. And on this segment, we're talking about traffic in the City of Kalamazoo. And with us to talk about traffic in Kalamazoo, Dennis Randolph is the Public Works Manager and Traffic Engineer for the City of Kalamazoo. So welcome, Dennis.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here, Mike, to talk about my favorite subject.
Well, 2025 was a good year in terms of traffic in the City of Kalamazoo. So talk about that.
Right. It was our fourth year where we've experienced a decrease total crashes around the city, which is a really strong trend. It says that things are getting better for traffic and safety. And, over the last 4 years, we've saved over 1,700 crashes. And to put that in perspective, before COVID, the city averaged about 3,100 crashes a year, total crashes. So by eliminating 1,700, we've basically reduced a whole half year of crashes. And that's nice, or it's great, because it not only saves us money when people hit our signals and all our things out there, but most of the savings go to drivers because they don't have to repair their cars or pay medical bills or spend time trying to recover costs. So that money really goes to the driving public out there, which is a real nice thing. I think a great benefit. It's over $200 million in that kind of saving that we've had.
It's easy to say that the City of Kalamazoo is safer today. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would. And I think what's important, and some folks are saying, well, you have less crashes not because of anything you did as a city, but because volumes have gone down. And volumes went down everywhere in the country during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've been able to measure is that for us, the volumes overall in the city, again, are just about where they were back in 2019, before COVID. So what that says is, with a decrease in crashes, that with the same volume, we have effectively reduced crashes because of the things we're doing on our Streets for All program. Yes, there is a little bit of volume thing, and one thing that I'll have clear, well, you just see it up here on the map behind us, Michigan Avenue, volumes are a bit lower out there, but they're lower because trucks are going a different direction, and people who just used to speed through town as a shortcut are finding other routes. And that's what we were looking to do. We don't need that kind of traffic in our central business district, so traffic has been rearranging itself around this city, and it's going to keep rearranging itself over the next 4 or 5 years as we implement the two-way programs. But that is part of what we were planning to do.
So the critics will say that traffic crashes are down because volume is down in the city, but you're saying that's not the case.
Right. Overall, volumes in the city are, again, back up where they were before COVID, which I think is a good sign, too, economically. It means people are out and around. They're just not driving in the same places they were in 2019. But that's part of our plan.
So let's talk about some of the methods and tactics that the city is using with regard to traffic calming and traffic safety. So what are we doing in those areas?
I think the main thing is we've been trying to get people to slow down. And for people who just need to go fast, it isn't as desirable anymore, because everybody else is slowing. Now, is it a lot? It's 2 or 3 miles an hour. We don't find a lot of change, but it's enough for some folks to figure, I'd rather go on the expressway or go a different way or leave earlier in the morning, something like that. So that's one of the big things we've been doing. How we've been slowing speeds has been by reducing lanes, the number of lanes, by making lanes narrower. That'll slow drivers down. because they don't feel as comfortable driving faster down the street. We've put up a lot of traffic control devices, hundreds of traffic control devices, stop signs, warning signs of all sorts. Our radar signs are a real nice program that show people feedback what their speed is. So we've been putting a lot of devices in. Another big thing that helped with crashes is we've been converting 4-lane roads to 3-lane roads. They are not only safe, they are safer, period. We've known that for decades, and we are doing that right now, and it's making a big difference in our crash total. So it's been a combination of things we've done. I couldn't tell you exactly which one is working best, but we're working on finding that out.
But you do hear some people who will say that more lanes are better for traffic.
That's 1950s thinking. And in fact, it doesn't work. It just, it tends to attract more traffic. And as it attracts more traffic, then all of a sudden you need to keep adding more lanes. So you end up in a cycle where you're continuing to add lanes. And I've worked in places where that has happened, where you add lanes, there's more traffic, you add more lanes, it has more traffic.
And the speed increases as well.
And the speeds increase. And I think what the traffic engineering profession and the traffic safety profession is really changing right now, this is a modern movement, is to get rid of that old thinking and say, first of all, we need to make things safe. There's no reason there should be a crash on a highway. And we're going to do that first, and then we're going to make sure that we can serve businesses and have circulation in a community. But pumping large numbers of cars as fast as possible down the street is just the wrong thinking. And we've killed, in the United States, millions of people during the car age because of that kind of thinking. We need to stop that.
Talk about the pedestrian and bicyclist on the streets of Kalamazoo. What do they fit in?
They're important. You know, when a pedestrian gets involved with a car crash, they tend to lose. They may not get killed, but they get injured, and, you know, you never heal back 100%. It's just not possible. So that's one of the first things, and we're doing a lot of things like building sidewalks, putting ADA ramps in, which are really important. And one of the points about ADA ramps is they're not only good for folks who have some type of disability or need wheelchair access, they're good for little kids because they don't have to step off a curb. They're good for old folks like me because I don't have to step up on a curb. So they tend to be, the improvements we're doing are good for a really wide range of folks. We're putting a lot of devices at crossings. Again, rectangular wrap flash devices and other warning signs, and we're going to continue doing that work. Yeah, again, there's no reason why people should be in a car crash. It's because either the facility isn't quite right or people aren't paying attention or doing something that we need to help them change the way they do things. Bicycles, I think, are a particularly interesting thing for me because we're a college town. And traditionally, college towns had bicycles. That's how the students got around, which is really cool. And we weren't doing that. We weren't connected to the universities and K College. And I think one of the things we want to change as a city is to, first of all, make those kind of connections, but also to look at providing alternative ways for people to get around. And bicycles, you know, there have been bicycles out all winter. I see them. I watch my cameras all the time. And we have other measuring devices that we're using to check on that. But I think it is appropriate for a city like Kalamazoo to have a complete network, bus, transit type things, bicycles, cars, and trucks. our motto has been streets for all, and we have to account for that. And one of the nice things about especially the bicycle work we're doing is that when we eliminate a lane, we're able to provide a place for bicycles. And some folks will say, well, they're still on the street, it isn't safe. It is safe.
As long as they're in a designated
That's right.
lane.
And that's one of the
Right.
biggest problems we have, both with pedestrians and bicycle crashes, is that you'll read the crash reports and you'll see that somebody wasn't following the vehicle code. People were walking in the street, but with their backs to traffic, which you can't do. People on bicycles weren't in the bike lane or using them correctly. And then there's the car drivers who sometimes just feel they don't belong there at all, and they won't care. So we have a long ways to go in safety education for drivers and pedestrians and bicyclists. But I think first you need some facilities out there. And what we're seeing, especially with bicycles, is that there are more people using their bicycles in town. That's why our numbers just creep up just a little bit for bike crashes. But it's because there are more people riding bikes all over the town than they used to. So I think that's the trend of having more bicycle people out is really good. Again, I think it really is appropriate for a university town to use that traditional mode of transportation. We're doing our best to connect K College and Western Michigan University to downtown and the rest of the city, and that's one way they can get around.
And the new event center will play a large role in that as well.
Absolutely. We want people in the end to be able to walk and bike and drive safely to the event center. But especially they're going to be playing Bronco hockey and everything out there. We want people to enjoy a walk safely back and forth to campus, and our designs that we're working on right now, that's the first thing we're looking at. And our designers have been told we need to make sure that pedestrians, bicycles are accommodated first. We're going to time the signals to accommodate them. We're going to build roads that can accommodate them safely. And it's not an afterthought, we're doing it.
Now, I believe with regard to bicyclists and pedestrians, you may have some data that you would like to share and show us as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
On the screen here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Okay. And we can do that right now. And what are we seeing here?
This is a map that we have put together. We have all kinds of data, and one of the problems that engineers have is we often have lots of data, but it is a really tough task to analyze it or to bring it all together. I have data in our asset management system, in our crash system, in our speed and volume system, and bring them together is what we really want. And there's some tools out there right now being developed that we can use, and we are using, that allows us to bring things like crashes and asset management data together so that we can visually see what's going on, but also we can do a lot more calculations with them and just investigate where we need to put things, how we can improve the system. So this map right here is showing where crashes are in the city, and we have all kinds of data on this crashes.
And these are all crashes from 2022 to today.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And let me eliminate some of the other things because not all these dots are crashes. All right. These are traffic control devices which we've put out to try to prevent crashes, but here are all the
These are fatalities.
crashes,
Yeah.
including the fatalities that
Right.
we've had since 2022. So we can see visually around the city, and this data is really current. I can get new updated data within 2 weeks. Right now, I'm getting data for February of this year to include, so we have a real good feel what's going on. Likewise, I have volume data and speed data. It's not on this particular map yet, but what I do have on the map is places where we have our speed radar signs, our feedback signs, and things like that. But you can look and see where crashes are, and these are pedestrian-related crashes. I can do the same thing on bicycle-related crashes or different types of car crashes, rear-end crashes or right-angle crashes. I could look at month, time, circumstances, all those things that we like to look at, because from that information, then we can figure out a good solution to try to prevent crashes from happening.
Okay.
So again, these are all the crashes, and then I can go here and add all the places we've got flashers or speed radars.
Mm-hmm.
And what you end up having is a really nice picture of where our devices are and how they may be affecting crashes. And again, we can do a series of detailed calculations, which is even nicer. But this type of system is really, there aren't too many places in the country that can do this kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
Those happen to be where we have traffic count information.
Okay.
So a lot of folks say, well, you don't know what's going on my street.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You have the
actually,
data to show it.
yeah, we've got a lot of data. Again, the problem has always been, how do you process all of this data and make some sense out of it? Because it takes time. It's statistics. It's hardcore math and engineering, and it takes time. But again, there's a lot of new tools out there right now that make it easier. So that's what we're into. And again, hopefully, my objective is to keep that total crash picture falling and continue on. So that's why we're doing this, to make and continue making our streets safer.
Now, where are the streets and the neighborhoods in the city that are seeing the reductions in crashes and improvements?
Yeah, I think, and again, we're just starting to do that kind of analysis, but I think a couple of the biggest impacts have been here, and I want to clear those traffic counts off because they're great big circles. But I think what we're finding for crashes in general is that the streets where we've converted from 4 lanes to 3 lanes have had some of the biggest impact. Another big impact, and I've just started looking at it, has been about 3 years ago, we put backplates on all our traffic signals. You might notice them, they're the yellow
Yes.
panels.
Mm-hmm.
Those really help drivers see the signals.
Mm-hmm.
And those backplates, we put them on 60 signals in the city. I think they have been like number 2 in effectiveness. They have really helped stop crashes, in particular angle crashes, crashes at intersections, which tend to be high severity crashes,
Okay.
as opposed to a rear end crash. Rear end crashes, which you see at intersections, but in a lot of other places, are low severity. People don't get hurt as bad or hurt at all on rear end crashes like they do for like a right angle crash.
Okay, so we're getting safer, but at the end of the day, what are the primary objectives that you want to emphasize to the public with regard to safety in Kalamazoo?
I think we've got a ways to go regarding speed, and in fact, speeding not only causes crashes, it makes crashes more painful for people. The severity goes up. So we want to do that, and that's why you see the radar signs. That's why you see a lot more stop signs. We want people to slow down and think and not get into a crash in the first place. I think the other thing is, speeding around doesn't necessarily help people travel through town efficiently. We need people to follow the speed limits. If you follow the speed limits, you're probably going to be able to get past the traffic signals a lot better. They're timed for 30 miles an hour or 35 miles an hour, not for 50 miles an hour. So when you speed and you say, well, that signal stops me every day, it probably stops you because you were going over the speed limit. So, and I think one of the things you find, especially with speed and like downtown, is that people walking along Michigan Avenue or Kalamazoo or Rose or any of the streets downtown where we have businesses, when you have traffic traveling excessively fast down those streets, walkers especially are very uncomfortable. And it makes it really undesirable to want to walk up and down our streets when you've got a big truck or a car zooming past you 50, 60 miles an hour. Plus, besides being unsafe, it's very uncomfortable for people. Why would you want to visit downtown with traffic going like that? You go into a lot of big cities and you don't see that kind of thing happening. All right, they may seem congested to some folks. I go to Washington often, and I walk around, and yeah, that it seems congested often downtown or around the Capitol buildings or the White House. But you know what? Cars are going slower, and you don't feel uncomfortable walking down those streets, which is why one reason people like going to those places, because they can feel comfortable out walking around.
And the same goals are here as well.
Exactly, yeah. We want for our businesses, people to be comfortable so that they will park and feel okay walking a block to a business, because they don't have to walk that much further to get a business than you would if you go to a big box store.
Right.
And again, what we're looking for, especially with the event center and all the people that will be coming down, we want them to enjoy or feel comfortable walking to businesses and restaurants before and after the games. We want the students to walk up to the event center if they can. There'll be bus service and other ways to get there, but it's a nice walk. You don't have to worry about cars or trucks going too fast and threatening you with a crash. And that, I think, is the big idea behind what we're wanting to do, is to just make it comfortable for people. Plus, besides the comfort part, you've got less emissions, and it is not true that going fast makes less emissions. That's not the case. The best points for emissions are down around 30 or 35 miles an hour. There's less noise from engines and tires, so you get a little bit of benefit from that type of traffic noise not being there. So there are other environmental benefits, if you will, that managing traffic and making everybody travel at a reasonable speed that's appropriate for a dense downtown development.
Okay, and that ends our segment. And thank you, Dennis, for providing this important information to us as well.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And that ends our segment. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.